So this is my review for the Artisul D16 15.6 inch pen display tablet. Alright, welcome everyone. My name is Kurt, and this channel usually does coloring tutorials and sometimes tablet reviews. Up front, I am not a professional reviewer. I don't do a ton of these. So if this review is not up to your standards, there's lots and lots and lots of reviews for this tablet on YouTube. But I get asked my opinion about these tablets sometimes, so I figured why not. One thing I want to get out of the way up front, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but YouTube has been recommending a lot of these what you need to know about tablet reviews on YouTube type videos. There's been a lot of meta discussion about reviews lately, so I thought I would go ahead and get out in front of some of that on this video, make sure everyone understands where I'm coming from here. Number one, they just sent me the tablet. I didn't get paid anything for it, they just sent me the tablet. If they ask to see the review before it goes live, I'll be happy to show it to them. I won't change anything, but they can see it. What else? Oh, what tablets that I've actually used before. That's important so you guys know what I have to compare this to. As far as display tablets go, there was a long time ago a Lenovo, I don't know if that's saying that right, MSP19U, which is defunct now. 22-inch Wacom Cintiq, briefly. I don't like big tablets. I feel like I was doing calisthenics. The Wacom Mobile Studio Pro, that was a 16-inch tablet like this one. The XP Pen 15.6, which I reviewed not too long ago. I will link that below. And I work every day on an iPad Pro, primarily. I also have just an Intuos regular, non-display tablet I use quite a bit. It's not really apples and apples to compare to this tablet. So those are the tablets that I'm comparing this tablet to. So we can start with just what comes in the box. Now obviously it starts with the tablet, and it also includes a stand. Now this stand has 3 different angles that you can set it up at. I think it feels pretty solid, and I don't think your tablet's going to go anywhere. I wasn't crazy about how small the little lip or this shelf that the tablet sits on. It feels a little like it's not quite wide enough if you have like a cat or a small child or something that is going to bump things. So I think you could pretty easily knock this tablet off the stand if you're not careful. So keep that in mind. Instruction book. There's a little clip-on stylus holder thing. I never really hooked this up. The stylus reminds me a lot of the stylus on the Mobile Studio Pro. It's light, got a good thickness, got a good weight to it. There was one thing I didn't really care for with this stylus. It feels a little rattly, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. You've got a USB cable extension and the power. There's a little custom USB, mini micro USB, I'm not sure what this is. A USB cable, there's an HDMI cable. There's the case for your stylus and your accessories, I guess. A bunch of spare nibs, the AC adapter, and the all-important digital artist glove, which is where all of your powers come from, of course. And a quick rundown on the specs. This is a 15.6-inch tablet, and it is at 1920 by 1080, so it's a full HD screen. This resolution feels a little low to me at this size, but I'll get into that later. There's a customizable quick dial, there's 7 express keys, over 8,000 levels of pressure sensitivity. I was really impressed with that, and I'll show you that later. 76% of the Adobe RGB color gamut, USB 3.0, and the battery-free pen, which we've already discussed. So I'm going to keep this pretty straightforward, give you some things that I liked and some things I didn't like. So things that I liked. Number one, it had really good pressure sensitivity. It's 81, 92, or whatever the levels is that are pretty much standard for all these tablets these days. So you get a really smooth pressure gradient. I didn't really notice any strange artifacting or jumping in my testing from going from really, really light to really, really hard, which is what I would expect in a tablet like this. Second thing I liked is the texture. It actually has a pretty nice texture, sort of like you would find on some of the screen protectors available for some of the smoother tablets like the iPads. So it doesn't have that glass smooth feel that, say, an iPad would. And this is totally a personal preference thing. I actually kind of prefer the way the iPad works, and I don't use it with a screen cover. But the other thing this sort of texture does is it really cuts down on glare quite a bit, which was nice. The third thing that I liked is that it just seems to do what I expect it to do. I know that might sound crazy, but even using this, as a tablet that I'm not familiar with and I'm not used to, just after an hour or two, I felt like I was pretty comfortable with using it, and it works like I would expect a $400 display tablet to work. Now, as far as some of the things that I didn't like, I don't think Artisul is trying to position this as a super high-end graphics tablet for, you know, pro photo editors and pro artists. But at the same time, color reproduction is pretty important. And with this tablet, just in my eyeball test, I found it to be a little bit too saturated. And it was subtle, but it's something that I noticed pretty easily. And I trust my eyes on this for what it's worth. And this is a really hard thing to show on YouTube. But the picture on the left that you're seeing is from the same photo as the one on the right. I just cropped them and put them next to each other so we can compare. And don't pay attention to the sharpness here. My camera was autofocusing. It's the color that I want you to notice here. I want you to see just how much more saturated that the image on the right looks. Because it's the same image, still Photoshop in both, same exact file. And you'll see, especially in the background is really where I noticed it the most, that blue color. You can see it's a lot more saturated, a whole lot more intense kind of on the right side and not so much on the left. Now the monitor on the left is color calibrated, and that's the monitor that I do all of my final tweaks on all of my pages. So the colors there should be pretty solid. So this is a pretty big deal if accuracy of your colors are really important. Now, if you're just a beginner and you're learning and you're practicing, I think this is a good tablet for that. But even after calibrating it, I still saw some of the same color issues. And in my case, as a colorist, this would sort of be a deal breaker for me. Second issue I had was with the resolution. Now, if you're used to working on a 1080p display about this size already, you're probably not going to have an issue with this one. It feels very similar to the XP Pen 15.6, but this is not a super sharp display if you're used to a 4K screen, if you're used to the Retina displays on the iPad Pros. This tablet has about a quarter of the pixels that say an iPad does, and it's stretched over almost 16 inches. So the pixel density is about half of what it would be on a high resolution display. But again, it's not really competing with the iPad Pro. But to my eye, and being used to working on a high resolution display all the time, this feels like a huge step down. But it's also a big step down in the price, so you sort of have to weigh what's important to you there. But I would say this one sort of falls in line with all the other tablets that I've seen in this price range. There's only so much you can do at 1080p at this size. You're not going to have a super sharp display no matter what you do at that size, at least as long as the resolution is only 1080. Now the pen that they included actually worked well. It sort of had this kind of rattle in it, and it just felt kind of loosey-goosey, and the more I used it, I kind of got used to it, but I guess it's not a huge deal for an entry display tablet like this. And the parallax between the pen and the screen, which is just the distance between what you're drawing and where you're actually holding the pen, is about standard. It's about what I've seen on all the displays like this. Again, it's not a fair comparison to compare it to, say, an iPad Pro, which basically has no parallax. But if you don't make that comparison, I did find it was pretty easy to get used to pretty quick. Now, personally, I don't really use the express keys. You know, I tend to use a keyboard shortcut, you know, for anything that I want to change. I couldn't actually test the express keys. I mean, they feel good. You know, they feel like buttons should feel. But at the time of the recording, I was using the newest available driver, and I was having issues with even getting the settings for the hotkeys to show up. Same with the scroll wheel, or the scroll dial, they call it. I did notice dial was even spelled incorrectly in the software. I don't know, it makes me wonder about the quality control a little bit, but the express keys were not something I was able to test for this review. So the big question of would I recommend it? If you're just starting out, if you're a beginner, if color reproduction is not a huge deal and getting colors exactly perfect, you're just practicing, or you're doing your final, you know, tweaks on a different monitor possibly, sure, I'd recommend it for that. But for anyone that needs like really good color reproduction, I would have to pass on this one. But at the same time, I don't think you're going to do a whole lot better at this price point, just to be perfectly honest. So there we go. That's the first review of an Artisul product on this channel, and probably the last now. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.